Welcome to the Afternoon Constitutional. I appreciate you joining us today back in Charlottesville from our trip to Memphis. And again, thanks to the Scousins and all the folks involved in Freedom Fest. And what a great time we had. Hopefully you had some illuminating episodes of this program. You can watch them on our YouTube channel as well. Today, we want to get into a couple of different issues. We have hearings going on regarding the whistleblowers, the FBI, and what was known and when. Meanwhile, we have selectively a bunch of folks who signed up to be electors in Michigan facing federal charges now and facing charges of forgery, felonies that could land most of these people in prison reasonably to be considered for the rest of their lives out of Michigan. We're going to visit with Jenny Beth Martin of Tea Party Patriots. She's going to join us and break down some of this, but a couple of things about these indictments. Now, the key one is forgery, and the forgery is going to be very interesting to watch out because what their claim is that since these were not the electors as canvassed by the State Board of Election, that any documents claiming that they were electors, even if they were potentially to be electors because there were challenges going on, is therefore forgery, and that is no good. So we'll get into that. But first and foremost, welcome back to the program from TeaPartyPatriots.org, the great Jenny Beth Martin. Jenny Beth, great to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's so good to be with you.
So take us a little bit into these. I remember there was a time not all that long ago where the word whistleblower was a sanctified word in Washington, where all you had to do was be walking down a hallway and overhear a conversation about somebody else hearing a conversation that you could run to Congress and be protected as a whistleblower. And now they are an abstract threat to our society. What has been going on in these hearings?
Well, I watched the beginning of the hearing today with the two whistleblowers from the FBI. And one thing that I found interesting that both of these whistleblowers said in their opening statements, they really encouraged Congress and the American people to stop politicizing the act of whistleblowing. Mm-hmm. One of the gentlemen, I didn't know it until today, but I guess that it has been going around that he either could be trusted more or could not be trusted more because he's LGBTQ, he's gay, and he's married to a man, so he has a husband. Mm-hmm. And apparently he's Democrat. And then the other one, I don't know what his political leanings are. But the other one also said that both sides of the aisle tend to try to glorify a whistleblower and attack a whistleblower without even ever, oftentimes, they haven't even heard from the whistleblowers themselves. I think what we have to do in America, and when I say this, I realize that I'm saying we need to do it, and the chances of it happening right now probably are not very, very good. But we need to just take a deep breath and remember that the people who are coming forward to speak about these things are members of the public, they're our fellow citizens, and that we need to hear what they have to say and then judge them on the content of what they have to say and their work history. Who cares who they're married to or how they voted? Are they telling the truth? And if they are telling the truth, does it matter? And what they're saying, is it important? And are they telling the truth because it's factual, or are they themselves injecting politics into their testimony?
Well, and you know, when you think about somebody who goes into law enforcement and their whole goal is to be able to collect evidence so that bad people who have violated other people's rights can go to prison. And if they're stepping forward saying, hold it, there have been issues in the investigation into what used to, and again, I don't mean to whip this horse too much, but this used to be a high crime amongst members of the Democratic Party. I remember, you know, not to make it personal, but the first time a visiting in-town person, I believe he was from Qatar, it was some ambassador was here to visit President Trump, and he stayed at the Trump hotel in Washington, and I had 3 weeks of people screaming about violating the emoluments clause because he stayed at a hotel with the name Trump on it. How is it that all of a sudden these folks are willfully ignorant, Jenny Beth, about even being intellectually curious about where all this money is swirling around somebody with such a high and important position?
Well, it's easier to get mired in those bizarre details rather than paying attention and looking at the big picture, and also rather than just looking at the facts. It seems that as we pull all the way out, what we have going on is that Joe Biden lied to get into the White House. He lied to the American public to get into the White House. And it seems that Joe Biden has been lying and using his influence and his position of power to be the cash cow for his family so that he can sell that to people around the world. Hunter was his bag man. But it seems that Joe Biden was the product and was okay with being the product. That is a problem, and we need to pay attention to that. That is actually much worse than where somebody stays in a hotel in Washington, D.C. I mean, to compare the two is crazy.
Well, no. I was comparing the two just to say that, like, guys like Adam Schiff.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking when you try to compare those two, there's no comparison of it. What I've realized, I'm going on, but what I've realized over the last year or so, and I guess I suspected it anyway, is that every time the left makes an accusation against us on the right, they really just need to turn the mirror and look in the mirror because they're actually talking about themselves. So when you had 3 weeks of people complaining about whatever was happening with the person who stayed in the hotel, well, the fact in the Trump hotel, the fact is the real person who's violating rules and laws and ethics are actually the Democrats.
And that's the part that I think, in selling access to our government, and I think Madison and probably George Mason as well, when they crafted the separation of powers and the restrictions on what government was to do, figured this will be a firewall against this kind of corruption, because a government that doesn't have that much power really doesn't have a lot of real estate to sell. And ever since, easily 150 years, Jenny Beth, we've been developing this government that has more and more authority, more and more money, more and more permissions to give that wind up becoming prime real estate for people. And I just want some intellectual curiosity. If I was a Democrat, and I feel for this person who is apparently a gay man, Democrat voter, maybe he's feeling like, hold it. This is my party. I don't want this state. I want to find out, if it didn't happen, or if it is, let's get rid of the virus now. Is that I mean, that's what I would want if I found out it was a Republican.
Well, here's something interesting. I've watched the last 2 hours of the hearing. That particular man, his name is Mr. Ziegler. And one of the things that Mr. Ziegler has said now, I caught him saying it 2, maybe 3 times. It's not like I have a transcript. I'm just remembering off the top of my head. But he continues to say it is very important that every taxpayer in the entire country is treated equally, and that the law and these kind of investigations apply to all taxpayers in the same manner. And it may not be that he's saying, what about my party? It may just be that he's saying, well, what about when I'm doing this job with all the other people who I have to investigate? I mean, let's face it, no one likes tax agents.
Right.
I mean, they didn't like tax agents when Paul was Saul in the Bible. So this is universal, and it's been around for a long time. So, those people, whether we like it or not, you do have to have tax agents, you have to have IRS agents, you have to have the tax collectors, and they have a difficult job to do. And at least if you think that they're doing a very difficult job, but they are doing it fairly and treating everyone the same without, say, targeting the Tea Party and Patriots groups, or giving preferential treatment to a president-elect, former vice president, and his family. When you don't have those kind of things going on, people can deal with, I don't really like dealing with a tax agent, but it is what it is. But right now, when you've got these kind of weird injustices going on, it makes their jobs so much more difficult, and that's not right to them.
Well, and let's remind for those who may have not been there in 2009 when all the IRS things were going on to the Tea Party movement and all the Tea Party organizations all across the country. It's not a beverage; it's an acronym for taxed enough already. We're not anti-tax. We are appropriate taxes. Show us what you needed. I mean, the Fifth Amendment is very clear. If you're going to take our property, there has to be compensation. At very least, some transparency as to what you're using it for. So, Jenny Beth is right on the target, and she's been there from the very beginning of this. What was the mood? Obviously, this is very partisan in the questioning as well. But has anyone asked the question, you want to harken back to an oldie but a goodie, what did the president know and when? And I'm not talking about the 46th president of the United States. I'm speaking of the 44th president of the United States. Has anyone asked during this period of time, really the only real estate Joe Biden had access to that he could leverage was the oval-shaped office at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and that was only because he was vice president.
Yeah, I have not heard anyone ask that, so I don't know anything about that. And in fairness to former President Obama, at this point, I have not seen any indication that he was involved in this. So that could come out later, but I haven't seen people asking it, and I haven't seen anything that indicates that he was involved in it. I don't know. It just seems like this is a well-oiled machine that the Biden family had going long before he was vice president.
Right.
I don't know that for a fact, but it sure appears that way.
Well, I know that his compound in Maryland is bigger than Mar-a-Lago, and nobody can rent a room in there like you can in Florida. Jenny Beth, so how much longer are the hearings going to go on? Do you know, is it going to the rest of the week?
For this particular hearing, it will conclude sometime this afternoon. I'm not sure which hearing will come after that. This one is in front of the Oversight Committee, and I'm sure there will be more hearings. That is one thing that the Republicans in Congress are doing very, very well. They continue to have hearings, collect and gather evidence, and present the facts to the American people. Here's the important thing for all of us to remember. I get so angry at what's going on right now. I mean, it just ticks me off. I listen to it all and I'm like, are you kidding me? They can get away with this. I was targeted. My group was targeted. Donors of mine were targeted by the IRS, and they're getting preferential treatment, and their grandkids couldn't even be talked to because it was a man running for president. This is just ridiculous, and it's maddening. So how do I deal with all of that emotion and that anger right now? I think it is important for us to understand that we gather the information, we gather the evidence, we understand what happened, and then we have to, between now and next November, make our case to the American people that there is an alternative to what is going on. There is a better way to do things in America, and then we have to work to secure and win elections. And that's what it's going to take for us to have the real kind of cleaning up of all of these government agencies that truly needs to happen.
Well, and you remind that Congressman Comer wouldn't even be holding these hearings if the midterm elections hadn't turned out as moderately as they did in 2022.
That is absolutely correct. It's not where I want it to be right now with who controls the power in government. It is where it is. So we have to just understand where we are, get what we are able to get with the kind of power that we have right now. And then we must win in 2024. And we have to get out the vote. We have to be smart. We have to be persuasive to our fellow Americans. And we have to change who was in the White House. And we need to change the majority in the Senate so that we can actually get legislation passed that we want to see passed. And I think it's really important I think the Department of Justice and the FBI, I would love for them to be gone at this point. I think that's a pipe dream and probably a bit unrealistic. I still think it should happen. But if it's not going to happen, we certainly need these agencies cleaned out. They need to be streamlined, and they need to be measuring things that matter. I recently interviewed one of the Department of Justice whistleblowers, an FBI whistleblower, and I found out they are being measured on how many cases they open, not how many are completed to conviction, but just how many they open. and you get promotions and bonuses based on opening cases. And, and maybe that was done to try to create accountability, but it's having some very perverse side effects.
Yeah.
And then they get measured on that, and yet they're not opening the cases they should be when there's clear evidence of crime that, and the IRS and the Department of Justice agreed that the situation with Hunter Biden should be referred for prosecution.
Holy Wells Fargo, Batman. It's like that's who's running our Justice Department.
Yes.
So, and I think you touch on the thing that's even more important than faith and credit of the presidency or the people who might run for the presidency. It's that feeling that law enforcement is going to go back to, we'll come in, we're going to collect the evidence. You mentioned we're emotional. Law enforcement officers are people too. They get emotional. Somebody shows up at a crime scene and they see something and they're furious and they just want to go and revenge. But the point of training law enforcement officers is that they can control that and then dispassionately sift through the evidence to find the truly guilty parties in this. The American people need to have faith in that, don't they, Jenny? And that's one of the bigger things that is not just in this hearing. I think it's got to be the offshoot of many, many more things to come.
Yeah, absolutely. They must have faith in that. They must be able to trust the people who are investigating. They must be able to trust the people who are prosecuting. And it isn't, the trust is not there right now. It just is not there. And the more we learn, the more that trust just erodes and crumbles away. And we have to have that kind of foundational trust between the people and the government in order for our government to function properly. I've been saying this since 2013, when the IRS on the Friday before Mother's Day finally admitted that they have been targeting my group and over 100 other groups around the country unfairly and unconstitutionally and illegally. I've been saying, if you do not rebuild this trust, it is going to create major problems in America. And it has gotten worse, not better, since in the last 10 years. And the only thing that I know to do to fix it right now is to make sure we understand what happened. And then we as individual citizens who are not elected officials, who are not prosecutors, who are not attorneys, who are not law enforcement, if you're those people, you have a different set of skills that will allow you to do more things. But as individual citizens, we can work to secure elections and to win elections. And then we work to hold the people we elect accountable and make sure they pass laws we want them to pass.
That being said, and I know that it's just coming about, but I think a lot of folks who watch this and listen to my radio show and watch your show, Jenny Beth, and are members of the Tea Party Patriots are shocked as we're sitting here listening to FBI agents talk about how they were told to mothball looks into Hunter Biden's laptop and even just to find out what it means. Meanwhile, I think it's 13 Michigan citizens are now facing the remainder of their lives in prison if they were convicted on these crimes that they were indicted for yesterday afternoon, starting with forgery and election fraud, for doing something that had been done before, and maybe they found a loophole. I don't know, but it just seems shocking to me that in this world, apples to oranges, maybe that it is, that we're watching these people get caught up in a prosecution that may bankrupt them and their families just to defend themselves, while the Bidens are again, being told, don't worry about it. We got it. We got you covered. I mean, should there be some angst about this, Jenny Beth?
Oh, yeah, there should be a lot of angst about it. And let's remember also, yesterday we heard from Trump that he expects to go before the grand jury again related to January 6th. So there will be another indictment related to January 6th out of Washington, D.C. Furthermore, there is still an investigation going on with a grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia, and a district attorney who is determined to indict President Trump in Atlanta, Georgia. And she may very well do the exact same thing to the electors in Georgia that we just saw happen in Michigan. This is absurd. It is such an abuse of power. The people who are facing this situation must be very, very concerned about their future financially, as you just mentioned, where they're going to live, whether they will be free. What they did when they presented themselves as alternative electors. It has been done before. It happened in Hawaii. It also dates back, I believe, to the 1860s, but sometime in the 1800s. I may be wrong about the date with that. And even in the 2016 election, there were a few people who were electors who were in favor of Hillary, who filed as alternative electors or did something very similar.
Wow.
Not a lot, but a few, even in 2016. So those people it was allowed for them, but now because you're standing up for President Trump, it just isn't allowed. This is wrong. It's a two-tiered system of justice. We cannot continue in this country with a two-tiered system of justice. That's a banana republic, and we won't survive as a banana republic. And if we don't win in 2024, I don't know what the future of America looks like. Even if we do win in 2024, I'm cynical enough and I am not naive. So I understand that our chances of fixing things the way we need to get them fixed are very, very difficult and will be an extremely steep uphill battle. Nevertheless, I still think we have the chance to fix things in America. We're not at war with our fellow citizens.
Yep.
We've been that way before in this country. So we have the ability to get this right, but it's going to be hard. And what I saw happen in Michigan, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And I know that there are other electors in other states right now who are worried the exact same thing may wind up happening to them.
Well, I know that it's different when the IRS is targeting you than when the Department of Justice or an attorney general is targeting you. But if you had a word of advice, having faced this kind of attack from law enforcement and the state, what would your advice be, Jenny Beth, having now on this side with the experience and the quote scars to say here's some advice from somebody who's been through this crucible?
Well, the first thing that I would say is that you need to pray and you need to trust in God. And when you trust in God and are constantly acknowledging him, he will help you discern what you need to do. And he's with you no matter what. And that's very important. And that sustained me as I've gone through the most difficult circumstances in my life, including this IRS targeting. The next thing to understand is that you are not alone. There are millions of Americans who support you, and you're looking at this and you feel like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you really do in some ways. You're not alone as you bear that weight, and your citizens across this country care about you, support you, and if they need legal defense funds, I'm sure people around this country will step up and help donate to make sure they're able to get the kind of legal representation that they need.
Jenny Beth Martin, it's Tea Party Patriots. What's coming up? Obviously, you guys are tied in. You've been watching and reporting on these hearings. What else is going on at teapartypatriots.org?
Well, I think that we need to watch out. I believe tomorrow there are hearings in the Senate about ethics with the Supreme Court. The Senate wants to come in and make the Supreme Court adhere to all sorts of rules and regulations and ethics.
For going to somebody's vacation house, that they have been going to for decades. I mean, this is another one of these.
Exactly, and they want them to adhere to a separate set of rules than what the president or Congress has to adhere to. That's absurd. The people who are on the Supreme Court, when you just mentioned like going to somebody's vacation house, I believe one of the justices has sold books and done other things. There are a lot of things that they've done. They've given up a lucrative career as an attorney to be a justice in the Supreme Court for the rest of their lives. So I don't fault them for being able to get away and go stay somewhere and have a vacation, or to go to Europe and teach overseas in universities overseas. And all of the justices have something like that going on, and I don't fault them for doing that. So we need to watch out for that. And it isn't I think we have to watch out because we need to be defending Clarence Thomas, but it's not only about Clarence Thomas. We have to defend the Supreme Court as the third branch of government and as the institution that it is, so that it doesn't become twisted the way that Senate Democrats would like to see right now. Yeah. Beyond that, we continue to look at different kinds of actions each week, like what I just mentioned we'll be doing tomorrow. so that you can make calls to Congress and you can take action, and we educate people on that. And then as we're looking towards 2024, we'll be training poll watchers and poll workers, recruiting those people, training them, and then helping them get placed across the country. And we also are working to modernize elections for a super PAC.
Well, thank you so much. That's it. No, any time for a summer barbecue.
Not a whole lot of time for that.
Yeah, I understand.
But my kids are in college, and I get to spend time with them over the summer, and I couldn't be more happy to do that.
Well, congratulations on that, Jenny Beth. I'm sure they're doing well and probably calling you every night saying, "Mom, you won't believe what this professor said."
Very true.
Jenny Beth Martin, it's teapartypatriots.org. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on the Afternoon Constitutional.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for tuning in and for watching us here. Share these videos. Share them. Hey, you missed this. It's 3 o'clock each afternoon back in town from our trip to Memphis. Until next time, for all of us at the Government Accountability and Oversight, govoversight.org, our favorite four-letter word is FOIA, and we find out what's going on. As a matter of fact, I believe we're going to have a little bit with one of our founders, Chris Horner, for you tomorrow on the program here. Catch up on the state of transparency. Until then, all of those times, so long, and thanks for all the fish.